Recording in progress, indeed, and welcome to PKF Hotel Experts in Conversation With. And today I've got the great pleasure of being joined by a legend in the industry. Ted Teng was the president and the CEO of leading hotels for many, many years. He's now the global president of the Cornell Hotel Society and a passionate hotelier who's sitting in Plano, Texas. Hello, Ted, and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Nils.
It's great. It's great to have you. And look, you're no stranger to PKF Hotel Experts. You've got long-standing relationships with some of my colleagues. We've only met recently online. And when we chatted, we started talking about brands, what do brands mean? And I thought, it might be a good idea. Somebody who worked with for me, it was a brand at the time when I was a youngster and started off my career 40 odd years ago. Leading hotels of the world was a brand, and we go into that a little bit later. But to brand or not to brand, what brought that discussion about that you started thinking about it?
Yeah, well, when I was serving as the president and CEO of leading hotels of the world for over 10 years, I got asked a lot by hoteliers, is my hotel better off branded or unbranded? And first thing I would do is correct them and say, it's not branded or unbranded, but rather the consideration is, do you want to be individually branded or chain branded? Mm-hmm. So that question I get asked a lot.
But in your mind, what is a brand? I mean, you kind of answered it already, but how would you define it? And when would you say a hotel in its own right, in independence, is a brand?
Well, to me, right, and maybe others think different. A brand is a name that stands for something in the minds of the target audience. Right? That's what's critical to the business, is what does that mean? What does that conjure up in the minds of the target audience? Everybody else, it really doesn't matter that much, right? And for instance, the Villa d'Este on Lake Como is just as loved of a brand as, by its customers as the Marriott brand is, say, by its frequent travelers. So a brand is something, it's a name that stands for something. If it doesn't stand for anything, then it's just a name.
Correct. And then it disappears into obscurity, I suppose. Now, leading hotels of the world, as I said, I saw it as a brand. Is it a brand? Was it a brand? Or was it maybe even the first collection brand? Because that's something which we see more and more now coming up, where the big hotel companies are bringing in individual hotels. That's something which leading hotels started, 90 years ago?
So it started by 38 European luxury hotels. Their whole idea was pool our resources to get some of the jobs done in 1928. When was 1928? Think about it. Downton Abbey. That's about 1928. Right. Okay, and it was after the First World War. The Europe was not in great shape, and then there's this new emerging market called the United States of America. They seem to have the cash, and the Europe have their castles, and they got together to really they thought more about functions than brand, because they have their own brands and all that. It wasn't that important to them. And over the years, leading hotels have been organized by functions like sales, marketing, events, brand, distribution, quality, all of that. But it's always is about the jobs to be done by our hotel members. What they want is product awareness, customer acquisition. How do they access new markets? And then more recently, channel connectivity. And leading hotels acts as a endorsement brand. It's not a brand in terms of all encompassing, but it endorses our hotel's brands. And they're also looking for insights and expertise. So it's always been a more of a cooperative It's not. It's set up to run not for profit, but everything the leading hotels does is to benefit its hotels. So it's very different than you see all the brands that's popping up today. It's all for the brand owners to make more money because the other brands have saturated the markets.
Mm. So in a way, leading was a brand. I mean, or was. I'm just trying to get my head. I'm just trying to get my head around.
Yeah.
There were probably the forerunners of brand and hotel companies, even though they were not a hotel company, not owning any properties. But the functions that you mentioned were or are the functions that most owners are now looking towards the brand companies to fulfill. Isn't that so?
Yes, but it was not created to be a brand, but it evolved into a brand. Because back in the 1928, there were no chain brands. Hilton wasn't around, Howard Johnson wasn't around, and Four Seasons was really created in the 70s.
Yeah.
So in turn from 1928, forward, leading was certainly the forerunner in the luxury segment. In terms of Holiday Inn became popular in the 50s when all the highways were being built. So yeah, from a history standpoint, it was certainly the forerunner of brand in terms of and collectives, people coming together to work together. But leading remains that way. Leading is a company that's owned by about 60 of its hotel members,
Yeah.
and it exists solely to serve the hotel members.
Yeah, as I said, it's interesting to see how now the big chains have all come up with, some call it soft brands, some call it collection brands, in order to fulfill probably what we used to do through leading and the like. I mean, leading is not the only one. Leading is probably the oldest, but not the only one in that particular market. And everybody's looking for its market share and looking to get the attention of the customer, the attention of the guest to bring him back. And in that, I would like to hear your thoughts on something which I read recently, which I thought was very interesting. And somebody was saying, is there more brand loyalty or is there channel loyalty? I.e., if I can buy Hotel X, which I really like, or Chain X that I really like, but I buy it through an intermediary rather than directly, where would my loyalty aspect lie? Because everybody's talking about loyalty schemes and so forth. What's your thought on that?
Oh boy. To me, the only loyalty is self-loyalty. Consumers are very loyal to themselves. Now, what they have is a consideration set. There are certain brands that they will use for certain occasions, and they are different for different occasions. For me, because of my business, fine, I stay in luxury hotels. When I'm driving my car across country, Hilton Garden Inn is perfectly fine for me. So it all depends on what is the job that I'm trying to do. Channel loyalty is not so much loyalty as it is convenience and perhaps better value, and that changes over time. And then that changes with every booking also. So to answer your question, I don't think there's a lot of brand loyalty or channel loyalty. Consumers are very keen to shop around. They don't want to spend a lot of time shopping around, but they'll go back to good experiences. But if that occasion is not giving them a good value, they'll quickly switch.
Yeah, I think it is that, as you say, it's the value that people are interested in, which brings us then obviously to the elephant in the room in some instances, the OTAs, and what impact. I mean, again, we touched on some of it already. What impact do they have? Are they just upsetting big hotel groups and their brands, or are they leveling the playing field for other non-group branded properties, so that I can, with Nils's place, I can now be head and shoulders with the rest? Is that maybe something that works or not? Or
my own opinion is that the OTAs extracted a large chunk of economic value from the hotel owners and enrich their shareholders. If you look at the share prices of, Priceline and Expedia and all of those, where did that come from? That came from the pockets of hotel owners because they've extracted that economic value from them. Now, however, I would say this, it was our own fault in terms of hoteliers and hotel owners.
We were caught napping.
We handed that over to them by, letting them price below our pricing, or we price over theirs. And I remember seeing a hotel reporting one of their key clients is Expedia or something. You're like, no, they're not a key client. They're a distribution system. They don't buy from you. It's their customers that buy from you, and the customers used to buy from you directly. I think OTAs have contributed to turning hotels into commodity products. If you look at their websites, everybody gets the same real estate. And, this picture, a few number of lines to describe. And the biggest real estate on the site, price. And we allowed it.
We love it, and we still, and I still see, because I recently, while I traveled, looked on one of these, I must admit, and I'm not ashamed, because I also looked for a bargain. And then I said, being a hotelier, let me call the property itself to find out whether the property would give me at least the price I found on the OTA. And on 2 occasions, they were not interested. They said, no, our rate is that, which was, I don't know, $20, $30 more than I found on the OTA. So I thought, but hang on, you're willing to lose the business and still pay 15% because I booked through the other guys. I couldn't get it. I just couldn't understand it.
It's probably the system we have set up such that that particular person speaking on the phone have to ask a supervisor if they can lower the rate. And for them, just as easy to tell you to go book through OTA.
And the supervisor went for tea. Ted, we're running out of time, but I just want to have one last question on the explosion of brands that we've seen, or brands is the right. If you look at Accor, for example, they have got something like, I think it's 38 or 42 sub-brands. Marriott, if I look at Marriott, okay, they bought Starwood. Of course, there were quite a few brands, but they're still developing extra brands that come up somewhere, and it's an explosion that we've seen. Do you think we'll, through the pandemic maybe as well, we'll see a consolidation, or do you think this proliferation is going to carry on?
I think the proliferation is driven by hotel companies. What they've learned when most of hotel companies were single brand. And what they learned is that pretty quickly they saturate all the locations they can go. So in order to grow, they create new brands. The great late Arne Sorensen said Marriott will either develop or acquire a brand per year. And of course, with the Starwood acquisition, he got his job done for quite a few years. But that's the thing. It's all about the growth of the hotel companies, and not so much in terms of what the market can bear, and what the market really want. And quite frankly, I can't remember which brand belongs to which group nowadays without looking it up. I think we're all confused as to what does this stand for within the family of Hilton, IHG, Marriott, and
if we are confused, us who have been in the industry for a long time, how does the poor customer and the guest feel, and how does he differentiate what he's getting where? And again, I think it comes back to the price tag that's on there. And if he thinks it's kind of the same, then he's going to go where he either feels very, very comfortable or where he pays less. I have managed again to run over time, but it was a really interesting discussion. I thank you very, very much. I send best regards to Plano, Texas. I've never been there, but the closest I've been, I think, was Dallas. But one day I'll see you over there, or I see you at one of the functions when we are allowed to have a bit more face-to-face engagement. Ted Teng, thank you so much.
I'd rather come to Cape Town to visit you.
You're always welcome. Let me know. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Nils. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.